3 pigs stood at the edge of the forest, each clutching a blueprint. They split up before the sun reached its peak. The first pig dropped his bundle of straw, tied it with twine, and finished his hut by noon. He spent the afternoon chasing butterflies through the tall grass, ignoring the darkening sky. The second pig dragged a pile of sticks to a nearby clearing, lashed them together with vines, and sat down to nap long before sunset. The third pig, however, hauled heavy bricks to a patch of firm ground. He mixed mortar, checked his level, and laid each layer with deliberate, rhythmic precision. By the time the first drops of rain began to fall, the first 2 huts were already standing, but the third brother was only halfway through his walls. He worked through the downpour. Water slicked his skin and turned the ground to mud, but he did not stop. He kept building while his brothers slept in their flimsy shelters. The forest grew quiet, save for the steady, heavy thud of his trowel against the stone. A week later, the forest floor shifted. A wolf emerged from the deep shadows, his belly growling with a low, rhythmic rumble. He moved with a predator's economy, sniffing the damp air until he reached the straw hut. He slammed a heavy fist against the thin wall, the impact vibrating through the dried stalks. "Little pig, open up!" The first pig did not hesitate. He bolted out the back, his hooves scrambling for purchase on the wet earth. The wolf inhaled, his chest expanding until his ribs strained against his skin. He held the air, then exhaled in a sustained, focused gale. The straw walls did not just bend, they disintegrated into a cloud of yellow dust. The structure vanished, leaving only the bare ground where the hut had stood moments before. The first pig was already a blur of motion, tearing through the brush toward the clearing where his brother slept. Behind him, the wolf stepped over the scattered debris, his eyes fixed on the path ahead. The first pig sprinted into the clearing, his lungs burning, and slammed into the wooden door of the stick house. He scrambled inside, his brother waking in a panic as the door shuddered under the force. Outside, the wolf arrived, his claws raking against the frame with a sharp, splintering sound. He did not bother to knock. He puffed his chest, his lungs swelling to capacity, and unleashed a concentrated blast of air. The vines holding the sticks together snapped like dry twigs. The structure buckled, the walls bowing outward before collapsing. The 2 pigs did not look back. They scrambled over the wreckage, their hooves clattering frantically against the hard-packed path. The wolf stood amidst the ruins, his ears twitching as he tracked the sound of their retreat. Ahead, the brick house loomed. They reached the door, threw their weight against it, and heard the third pig slide the iron bolt home. The wolf lunged, his massive weight slamming against the brickwork, but the house did not shudder. He paced the perimeter, his claws scraping uselessly against the mortar. He inhaled, his lungs expanding until his ribs groaned, and exhaled with every ounce of his strength. The bricks remained motionless. He tried again, his face flushing deep red, his breath coming in ragged, desperate heaves, but the wall held firm. Frustration turned to a cold, calculated silence. He scanned the structure, his eyes locking onto the chimney stack rising above the roof. He moved with sudden fluid speed, scrambling up the side of the house. Inside, the third pig watched the soot shake loose from the flue. He acted without a sound, sliding a heavy iron pot of water directly over the roaring hearth. The liquid bubbled, steam rising in a thick, scalding haze. Above, the wolf squeezed into the narrow opening, his paws scrabbling for grip. He slipped. Gravity took hold. He tumbled down the dark shaft, his descent ending in a sudden, violent splash. A sharp yelp echoed through the room as the wolf scrambled back up the flue, his fur singed. He hit the roof, leaped into the dark, and vanished. The sound of the wolf's retreat faded into the deep shadows of the woods, leaving only the rustle of leaves in the wake of his flight. Inside the brick house, the 3 pigs stayed huddled on the floor, their ears straining against the return of the night. No more claws scraped the mortar. No more heavy breaths rattled the windows. The third pig moved to the door and pressed his ear against the wood, listening for a long moment before nodding to his brothers. He slid the iron bolt back, then returned to the hearth, where the fire had begun to settle into a steady, low glow. The brothers sat in the center of the room, their breathing slowly returning to a rhythmic, steady pace. The silence of the forest was no longer a trap, but a reprieve. They looked at the solid walls, the heavy mortar, and the strength of the structure that had held against the storm. The danger had passed.